Well, welcome to the fly-through of module number 4. So module number 4 we have going from the data to now start to implement what's my planning and teaching. So we're going to revisit quickly the data narrative, and now we're going on stepping forward. So we're examining a number of strategies this week and next week that you can apply directly into the classroom. First of all, I open up with this, something to challenge your thinking, and I do that a few times throughout the course. And it talks about Joe Rule. I think he's a Christian educator myself, but he isn't not overtly expressing that. And he talks about how this is like a real road to Damascus in some ways, about the story about how he changed his teaching to very much a student-centered one. So great video to watch and to just take some inspiration, some ideas forward. This is where we are. We are done the collection phase. We're now going to do the plan and teach phase. So it's about how we can put these together. So we're flying through, and now we're going over from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And we look at that, what type of work students want to produce, how you select your content in your planning, what processes you use in your planning, what strategies you'll use in your planning, and therefore across the teaching. This is, again, just highlighting where we are. We're looking at the process side and the content selection. Remember, I used the concept of grouping of three types of content, 3 modes of doing and 3 ways of expressing learning. This is a great resource. This resource, open it up and have a look. It is quite comprehensive in terms of the way it goes through differentiated classroom practice. What I like about it is it defines it and goes through things, just scroll down, then gives really practical examples and a video usually or a resource about how you could use this in your classroom. So I was talking about impact strategies, knowing your students, what's it about, and so on. How can I do this? Practical examples again. So it goes through a range of things that I could use this in the classroom. So consider storing that, utilizing that. Great resource. You can reference that because it's a government website, government one. So, it is, I think, a valuable thing to have a look at that. That's an example. Example of a summary of the page is the things that you can do. Change this. There's your challenge. Here's a choice. Goes through the various bits and pieces. Great resource. Another great resource, and you click on the link here and we'll go there, is going through the New South Wales as a whole area on differentiation, as does QCA, but I just think this one is a bit stronger. Talks about things to do, tiered lesson, working with small groups, anchor activities, varying, scaffolding, and so on. And it gives some examples for that. So I think, again, hits the mark on what's needed. So great resource to consider. This, again, we've seen this before. This is saying at the top we'll have some significant extension, significant support. Most of it's going to be around here. So you don't have to do this graphic says that's the volume of where you have to be pitching what you do, but you still do the top and the bottom. So we're looking at content, for example, and one of the areas to do that is content differentiation through what they call adjustable assignments. Now that could be at one level in the classroom itself. Assignments for the day, for this lesson, for this couplet of lessons, but also an assignment for the whole summative task even that you want to do that. So this goes through and has a look at those things about how you can have tiered assignments, a high, medium and low. And we go and have a look further. Content differentiation, a secondary example, a primary example, and I've got some extra bits of resources that you can dive into to see how tiering works. This is a planning template perhaps you might want to do, and say Australian democracy, 3 tiers of government, role, interactions. Okay, what are we going to do as a group? What are we going to do, know, do and value? What will be my first advanced level, my normal on sort of level, and a supported level? In other words, out of your objectives or the task, how are you going to segment that into different levels? Just a little scaffold. Here's some worksheets. Maths 1, 2 and 3. Notice that they're getting more complex. it's one thing, subtracting one thing and two things, for example. So memory stretch and stretch number 2, again, it goes even higher again, and that's where the resources came from. Here's another one, character map, describe, so middle, low, middle, and tier expectations, 1, 2, 3 informations. And here is a text chapter that I've inserted in there. Might go backwards. If you go into there, you can download that. This is where I got some of these things from. This one here is another maths lesson indicating you can use color coding, perhaps in a text, color coding as worksheets, color coding as samples. Can I say you can either tier through a couple of different ways? You can have the one worksheet which has got tiering in it, or you can have 3 different worksheets. Both are valid, but they would be great evidence of that work. The other one, the main one, I want to focus on scaffolding, a couple of YouTube videos that expand on what that means, but it's got to do with the zone of proximal development, hasn't it? In other words, you're giving it enough stretch and challenge, not so far away that you won't fail. The students won't fail, they can experience success. So here's some great examples. So here's an activity I'll get you to do, watch the videos, describe, and what the demonstration are. So I've got primary, I've got some secondary and primary, I've got a secondary one, and it just goes through how you can scaffold. And it goes through scaffolding in terms of verbal scaffolding, modelling, worksheets, student work that you get alongside them and support them in different ways. Here is talking about Hattie, big player as I remember, and how scaffolding work, why it works, because Hattie talks about learning visible, therefore you make things explicit. And here's some example. Simplify something, model something, provide an exemplar, give them pre-vocab, clearly say why and what we're doing, and step-by-step instructions. So one of the reasons I use a lot of exemplars in units is because I think it's a great scaffolding. Or we might do exercise, how to model things, for example. Every image has got something about scaffolding here. Scaffold writing, maths. So they're the key areas that you might want to have a look at and examples of how scaffolding looks in terms of in action. So I'll give you a class exercise for pair 1. Here's a sample document for you. Bang, you've got there. You can download it, put it into there. Graphic organizer, this is the next one. So underrated. They're great scaffolding tools. Let's have a look at them. It organizes information in such a way as it helps you organize your thoughts and idea. For example, here's a statement. Is that a fact? Is that an opinion? What is it about this? Here's a visual graphic organizer. This is a graphic organizer about how to write a story, for example, or in the opposite sense, unpack a story or a video and so on. The simple Venn diagrams is a scaffolding tool that you can have. It really is useful. There are thousands of different graphic organizers. Great scaffolding tool. And it goes through some of those benefits and useful sites which you can academically justify them. Templates, organizers, great examples there. Now I want to go into an area which lots of schools are using, the gradual release of responsibility framework. I do, we do, you do it together, we do it alone. And it's talking about, this graphic is showing less teacher responsibility and more students' responsibility. That in itself is not a teaching strategy. I refer it to as a framework because in each phase you can differentiate different ways and do different strategies. And the way I do it, could it be multiple ways of doing that? How we do it, is it group work, for example? Is it not group work? Is it workstations that we are using? Is there a variety in the we do? So each one has its own phase. Now, I think that's, if you explain how you're using the gradual release of responsibility model to ensure that you've got differentiation happening at the different phases, great. In itself, it's not a differentiation strategy. Only if you start to do different things along the way. For example, if a teacher gets up, does a demonstration, we talk about it, I do it, then we do one together, and then you go to your workbooks, work with a partner or work alone, there's not really much differentiation. There's no levels involved, there's no choice involved, there's no interest centres involved, there's no learning profile or modality involved, it's just straight. However, if you increase all those things into those phases, then yes, it is differentiation. And this gives you a framework and perhaps to do it. So it's a blending the framework and unpacking it as a differentiation. More important than saying this is a differentiation strategy, because it's not. It's a framework in which you can insert differentiation activities. But I put it here because it's a very predominant strategy. Going through the little things there's explicit teaching, bark, scaffolding, modelling, questioning, taps, multiple levels, multiple modes. You can do different ways of organising your classroom, learning menus, etc. So they're the strategies that you can incorporate there. Great little ideas coming from there if you wish. I've got click on each video here, and you'll see that it's unpacked, or an example is used about the gradual release of responsibility, how it works, and how you might want to apply it to your own.
Where you are.
Last, we got hopefully Peter Wilkinson visiting and talking about PEP, so your classroom doesn't become like that. So that's the fly through on what we're doing in class or online this week.